I don't mind the cheese. I love the cheese. I'm a big fan of the cheese. Mozzarella, cheddar, give me all the cheese. Hello my dudes, Steph Koza here, and today it's time to talk about It Chapter 2. It Chapter 2 is obviously the sequel to It Chapter 1. It takes place 27 years later. All of the kids in the Losers Club are grown up, they've moved out of Derry, they're all living their own separate lives. But of course, they can't get off that easy. Pennywise is back in Derry, traumatizing everybody, eating children, casual. And since they all took an oath as children in the first movie that if he came back, they would all come back and figure it out. So now the time has come and they're all making their way back to Derry. The Losers Club's getting back together and they're gonna take down Pennywise. And I thoroughly enjoyed watching this movie. I will say I think It Chapter 1 was a million times better than It Chapter 2, but that does not mean that I didn't really like this film. Aside from a few small complaints, I think this movie was a really good companion piece to the first film. I think it was a great, solid ending. It really wraps everything up in a very satisfying way. It definitely does not stand alone. There is a lot of references and flashbacks and little things relating to the first movie that if you didn't see the first movie, you're not really gonna understand anything that's happening. Not that this movie needs to stand alone, but it definitely doesn't. I think the best part of this film is the cast. Like, they cast the most perfect ensemble of actors to play this grown-up version of these kids because they look exactly the same. I don't know, I mean, it was probably planned before they even started the first one. But either way, like, come on. Jessica Chastain is older Beverly. Perfect. James McAvoy as Bill, literally blowing my mind. Bill Hader as Richie is everything I've ever wanted. James Ransone, just perfect. The similarities between young Eddie and older Eddie, I'm not even entirely convinced that these aren't the same people somehow. And then there's Jay Ryan as Ben. You know, there are like tiny similarities, but get out of glow up, man. Glow up. I do really think James Ransone and Bill Hader 100% stole the show. Mostly Bill Hader. I was so blown away by his performance. When I first saw the trailer, I was like, oh, Bill Hader. Love Bill Hader. Funny guy. Makes sense. He'd be playing the funny character. Strap in. Best performance I've ever seen from him. Best performance in the entire movie. Just absolutely amazing. I loved him. I love what they did with Richie's character and his story arc, and everyone really gets their own individual story arc. You kind of see how they grew in these 27 years, what happened to them, where they are now. There's a lot of interesting parallels with the younger versions of themselves compared to the older versions of themselves, particularly with Beverly's storyline and Bill's storyline and Eddie's very much. And I really just enjoyed seeing all of their stories played out. I will say while their individual stories and characters were really interesting, as a collective, as the Losers Club, there was something missing there. Despite it being a 3-hour movie and a lot happening, there wasn't a lot of development with their relationships together. I mean, it's there, but it didn't feel as whole as it does in the first film. They do spend a lot of time apart, and most of the movie is them just trying to figure out how to defeat Pennywise and not a lot of like communication. Like there's a love triangle situation that's never really explored much at all. And there are a few things that are established at the beginning of the film, a couple loose ends that aren't really touched on later. Nothing's really tied up as nicely as it could be in terms of just a few personal things that pertain to each character. However, I do think most of the loose ends are tied up in the end, and the ending was so good. I think the first act of this movie is very strong. The last act of this movie is incredible. The middle kind of drags, is a little bored. It is a very long movie. And it felt a little bit cheesy to me at times. It felt kind of like a cheesy 90s, like Goonies sort of movie, which is funny because the first one should have felt more like that, but I think this one feels more like that, even though they're adults. It's a little bit cheesier. There's a lot of like, find the artifacts, go on a quest sort of thing. It was kind of like I was in a weird video game. I haven't read the book. I'm assuming this is what happens in the book, so I can't really judge that part of the plot. But it did feel a tiny bit cheesy. However, I don't mind the cheese. I love the cheese. I'm a big fan of the cheese. Mozzarella, cheddar, give me all the cheese. However, for a creepy clown horror movie, maybe cheese isn't what everyone's looking for, but I'm here for it. I love the cheese. And it wasn't that cheesy. It was just like, some of the dialogue was a little cheesy. I think Pennywise was very cheesy. I actually, here's the thing about Pennywise. Pennywise is such a strange character. Like, even in the first movie, a lot of the times when he was supposed to be scary, I was just laughing because he's just a fucking clown. He says weird things and he has weird facial expressions and he's just kind of funny. But in this movie in particular, I don't know if it's just that he talked a lot more. He had a lot of weird, cheesy dialogue. There's also a part where you can kind of see his face, which is in the trailer, and I'm sure you've seen it. And I don't know if that just sort of like humanized him a little bit. He seemed a little bit more vulnerable. He had a lot more to say, and he's less of just like this creepy monster clown in the shadows and more present, which thus made him a little bit less scary and just kind of funny. Speaking of funny, this movie is pretty funny. The first movie is way funnier. Particularly Eddie and Richie's characters are like the comedic relief of the films. I think they were way funnier in the first movie, but they do still have some pretty good one-liners in this film, and I was laughing, like, you know, I was chuckling. It was a good time. One thing that's interesting to me is I think the first movie was way scarier than this movie. However, Pennywise is more evil, I think. He does, like, there are some gruesome kills, just relentless, disgusting, awful things that he does to children, these poor children. And maybe I'm a monster because I was just kind of like, cool. Like, it was gruesome and evil, but not that scary. I still enjoyed it and I had a good time, and it does have the like shock value, like that's definitely there. But I didn't really find much of this movie scary at all, except maybe the beginning. The beginning is kind of scary, kind of creepy. So yeah, overall, I had a really good time watching this movie. I think the one thing I will say about this film is that it hits every note. It's funny, it's scary, it's twisty, it has a lot of heart, like a lot. This movie has a lot of heart. The end of this movie, it has like one of those, you know, like the end of a good like John Hughes movie where you want to like put your fists in the air and you're just like, yeah, friendship. It has one of those endings, but like way better than what I just described. It made me emotional. I was not expecting to cry while watching It Chapter 2. There were tears. There were tears. I'm a little embarrassed about it, but there you go. And even though there were some sloppy decisions, it was a little bit slow in the middle, I have a few complaints. When I left this movie theater, I was very excited. I walked out of the theater and I said, that was so good. And that's all that really matters here. That's the takeaway from this. I enjoyed this movie despite its flaws. It was a great time. It was a great companion to It Chapter 1. Totally gonna buy it, watch it again. It was a good time. I enjoyed it. Also, just the attention to detail with these characters and the way that these actors emulated the versions of them that we saw in the first film. Like, they got the tiniest mannerisms down so well. Like, Bill with his stutter was perfect. Eddie's awkward neurosis mannerisms, done. Richie's sarcastic, cold sense of humor, nailed it. Ben still kind of didn't really sell it for me. But overall, the attention to detail in these performances was astounding. It Chapter 2 hits all the right notes. It's a great companion to the first film. It'll make you laugh, it'll make you cry, it'll make you piss your pants in the best way. And I'm gonna give it a 4 out of 5. But that's my review for It Chapter 2. Let me know what you guys think of the movie when you see it in the comments below. I would love to talk about this film with you guys. It seems to be a very polarizing film. Some people love it, some people hate it. There's not a lot of in-betweens. I acknowledge its flaws, but I still loved it. Maybe that's a personal problem. I don't know. I had a great time. Well, that's all for today. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm Sorcxisto. Be sure to subscribe if you are into that. Smash that like button if you like this video so that you can help a girl out. Also, guys, you keep commenting that you like my new house. Still in my apartment. This is the same place I've been all these years. I've shot videos in here before, several times. Have not moved yet. In the process of moving still. Impressed that I'm able to make this video and get it out in time. Yay, go Steph. Round of applause for me. But yes, I am still in the process of moving. This is still my old apartment, still here. I am posting an apartment tour of this place before I leave it. I kind of wanted to capture it as it is in all of its nerdy glory. So I'm doing a nerdy apartment tour that'll be coming out soon. Kind of weird, I know, because I'm about to move out of it, but I just wanted to capture it, you know, before I pack it all up in a box. So that's it for today. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.